Right now, as you're watching this, something extraordinary is happening that most people will never discover. Your consciousness, the very act of your awareness, is collapsing quantum possibilities into the reality you're experiencing. And what I'm about to reveal will explain why some people seem to effortlessly manifest their dreams, while others remain trapped in cycles of struggle, no matter how hard they try. There's an experiment so simple it can be done in any laboratory, yet so revolutionary that it threatens everything we've been taught about reality. It's called the double-slit experiment, and when you understand what it truly reveals, not just the science, but the hidden implications, you'll never see your life the same way again. But here's what the scientists won't tell you, what the textbooks gloss over, what even most spiritual teachers miss. This experiment doesn't just prove that consciousness affects matter. It reveals the exact mechanism by which your thoughts and emotions become your lived reality. And more importantly, it exposes why your manifestation attempts have been failing and what you need to do differently. I'm going to share with you 3 quantum secrets today. The first will shatter your beliefs about what's possible. The second will explain why you've been unconsciously sabotaging your own success. And the third will give you the key to collapsing any reality you desire into existence. But I need you to stay with me through the entire journey, because each revelation builds on the last, and the final secret, the one that changes everything, only makes sense when you understand what comes before. What you're about to discover isn't just about the law of attraction. It's about becoming the conscious architect of your own reality. Because once you truly grasp what this experiment reveals, you'll never again see yourself as a victim of circumstances. You'll see yourself as the observer who creates circumstances. But first, let me tell you something that might disturb you. Your life, as it exists right now, is the collapsed wave function of your most unconscious thoughts and emotions. Every morning when you wake up, you're not just opening your eyes to a pre-existing world. You're collapsing infinite possibilities into the specific reality that matches your hidden vibrational state. And if that reality isn't what you want, well, that's where the first secret comes in. Take a deep breath. What you're about to learn has been validated in laboratories around the world, yet it remains one of the most suppressed truths in science. Not because it's wrong, but because it's too powerful. Because once you understand this, everything changes. Picture this scene in your mind. You're in a physics laboratory, and in front of you is a barrier with 2 parallel slits cut into it. Behind this barrier is a screen that will record whatever passes through. Now, scientists take a beam of electrons, the fundamental building blocks of everything around you, and fire them one by one toward these slits. Logic tells us that each electron, being a particle, should go through one slit or the other, creating 2 distinct lines on the screen behind. But that's not what happens. Instead, something impossible occurs. An interference pattern emerges, like waves on water creating ripples that either amplify or cancel each other out. The electrons are somehow going through both slits simultaneously, interfering with themselves, creating a pattern that's only possible if they're behaving like waves, not particles. Already this defies everything we think we know about physical reality. But then comes the moment that changed science forever. The researchers decided to peek. They placed a detector at one of the slits to catch the electrons in the act, to see which path they actually take. And in that instant, the precise moment observation began, everything changed. The wave-like behavior vanished. The interference pattern disappeared. The electrons started behaving like particles again, going through one slit or the other. But here's what will shock you. It's not the detection equipment that causes this collapse. The equipment can be there, ready to observe, but if no conscious awareness is present, if no one is actually looking at the data, the wave behavior continues. It's consciousness itself, the act of knowing, that transforms infinite possibilities into single reality. Now most scientists stop here. They call it the measurement problem and move on. But there's something they're not telling you, something that reveals the first quantum secret. If this is true for electrons, the building blocks of your body, your house, your bank account, your relationships, then what does this mean for everything you're experiencing right now? Could it be that you're not just observing your life circumstances, but actually collapsing them into existence through the very nature of your consciousness? Could it be that the quantum field, that invisible matrix of pure potential that underlies all of physical reality, is responding to your observation in exactly the same way those electrons responded to the scientists. Here's the disturbing truth they don't want you to know. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every belief you hold is an act of observation that's collapsing infinite possibilities into your specific experience of reality. Your consciousness isn't separate from physical reality. It is what creates physical reality. But this is just the beginning. Because understanding that consciousness creates reality is only the first piece of the puzzle. The second quantum secret, the one that explains why your manifestations keep failing, is even more profound. And it has to do with something happening in your brain right now that you're completely unaware of. Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal will explain why some people can manifest money effortlessly while others struggle financially for decades. Why some people attract love easily, while others remain lonely despite trying everything. Why some people seem to live charmed lives while others face constant obstacles. The answer lies in a neurological process that's happening in your brain every single second. A process that's either working for you or against you, depending on something you've never been taught to control. And once you understand this second secret, you'll see why changing your external world has been so difficult, and what you need to change instead. But before I reveal that secret, let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. What if everything you think you're seeing in your life isn't actually what's there? What if your brain is only showing you a carefully filtered version of reality designed to confirm what you already believe? This isn't philosophy, this is neuroscience. And it explains why two people can look at the exact same situation and see completely different realities. Why someone can have genuine opportunities all around them and literally not see them. Why you can be surrounded by evidence that contradicts your limiting beliefs, yet somehow never notice it. Here's what's happening in your brain right now. As you watch this, your conscious mind can process about 40 bits of information per second, but your subconscious mind is processing 11 million bits per second. That means there's a massive filtering system determining what reaches your conscious awareness and what remains invisible to you. This filtering system is called the reticular activating system, and it operates based on one primary rule: show you what confirms what you already believe and hide what contradicts it. It's like having an invisible editor constantly curating your reality to match your existing programming. If you grew up believing that money is hard to come by, your brain will highlight every bill, every rejection, every financial struggle, while filtering out opportunities, abundance signs, and possibilities for prosperity. If you learned that love is painful, you'll notice every heartbreak story, every failed relationship, every reason to guard your heart, while somehow missing the people trying to love you. But here's where it gets really disturbing. This filtering isn't just affecting what you notice, it's affecting what possibilities you can collapse from the quantum field. Because remember, consciousness creates reality through observation. And if your consciousness can only observe limitations, then limitations are all that can manifest in your experience. This is why positive thinking alone doesn't work. You can affirm abundance all day long, but if your subconscious programming is filtering reality to show you scarcity, scarcity is what your consciousness will observe, and scarcity is what the quantum field will reflect back to you. Most people spend their entire lives trying to change their external circumstances without ever realizing that their internal reality filter is preventing them from even seeing the very changes they're trying to create. They're like someone trying to clean a mirror while wearing glasses that make everything look dirty. But there's something even deeper happening here, something that reveals why this filtering system exists and how it got programmed in the first place. Because your brain's reality filter wasn't created randomly, it was formed by emotional experiences that taught you what was safe to expect from life. And this brings us to something crucial you need to understand. Every limitation in your external reality exists because of an emotional limitation in your internal reality. Every pattern that keeps repeating in your life is being held in place by an emotional pattern you're unconsciously repeating in your consciousness. But here's where it gets interesting, and where the second quantum secret begins to emerge. Because there's a specific type of emotion that not only filters your reality, but actually broadcasts a signal into the quantum field, telling it what to manifest in your experience. And most people are broadcasting this signal constantly without realizing it. The emotion I'm talking about has been studied extensively by Dr. Joe Dispenza and his research team. When people are stuck in this emotional state, their brain waves change, their heart rhythm becomes chaotic, and they literally become unable to perceive solutions to their problems. But when they shift out of this state, when they learn to generate its opposite, everything changes. Suddenly, opportunities appear that were always there. Synchronicities become commonplace. The right people show up at the right time. It's as if the universe itself reorganizes to support their success. What is this emotion? And how do you shift from broadcasting limitation to broadcasting possibility? That's the second quantum secret, and it's more personal than you might expect. Because the emotion that's blocking your manifestations isn't what you think it is. Here's something that might shock you. You're chemically addicted to your problems. Not consciously, of course, but at a neurobiological level, your body has become dependent on the emotional cocktail that your struggles create. And this addiction is what's keeping you trapped in patterns of limitation, no matter how desperately you want to change. Every time you focus on what's wrong in your life, your brain releases a specific combination of stress hormones: cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine. These chemicals create a heightened state of awareness and energy that your body interprets as being alive. Over time, this chemical state becomes your normal, your baseline, your addiction. This explains why some people seem to move from one crisis to another, why they create drama, even when life is peaceful, why they focus on problems even when solutions are available. They're not consciously choosing struggle. They're unconsciously seeking the neurochemical rush that struggle provides. But here's the devastating part. When your nervous system is addicted to stress chemistry, it can only perceive possibilities that match that chemistry. The quantum field responds to your biochemical state, and if that state is constantly broadcasting stress, limitation, and problems, those are the experiences that will continue to manifest in your life. This is why people can work on themselves for years, therapy, affirmations, visualization, positive thinking, and still find themselves stuck in similar patterns. They're trying to create new external experiences while remaining addicted to the internal chemistry that created the old experiences. Dr. Joe Dispenza's research reveals something profound. When people break their addiction to stress chemistry and learn to generate elevated emotions instead, joy, gratitude, love, inspiration, their biology literally changes. They start producing different chemicals, activating different genes, creating different neural pathways. But more importantly, they start broadcasting a different signal into the quantum field. Instead of ordering more problems from the universe, they're placing orders for experiences that match their elevated biochemical state. Now, here's what most people don't realize. Breaking this addiction isn't about avoiding stress or pretending problems don't exist. It's about changing your relationship with challenges so that they no longer provide your primary source of biochemical stimulation. It's about getting your neurochemical fix from growth instead of drama, from solutions instead of problems, from the feeling of expansion instead of the familiar comfort of contraction. But there's something even deeper here, something that reveals why this addiction formed in the first place. Because your attachment to stress chemistry isn't just a bad habit, it's a survival mechanism that once served you, but now sabotages you. When you were younger, stress chemistry helped you navigate dangerous situations, stay alert to threats, survive in an unpredictable world. Your nervous system learned to associate this heightened state with safety, with being prepared, with being in control. But now, as an adult trying to create abundance, love, and fulfillment, this same survival mechanism is working against you. It's keeping you focused on what could go wrong instead of what could go right. It's making you feel most alive when you're struggling and most anxious when things are going well. And here's the part that connects to the quantum field. Your survival-based consciousness can only observe survival-based realities. It can only collapse possibilities that match its frequency of fear, lack, and struggle. But when you shift from survival consciousness to creation consciousness, when you break free from stress addiction and learn to sustain elevated emotions, you gain access to entirely different possibilities in the quantum field. Possibilities that were always there but invisible to your survival-focused awareness. This shift isn't just psychological, it's quantum mechanical. You're literally changing the observer within you, and when the observer changes, the observed reality must change in response. But here's where most people get stuck, and it's connected to something I haven't told you yet. Because even when people understand that they need to change their internal chemistry, even when they're motivated to break free from stress addiction, there's something that pulls them back into familiar patterns, something so subtle, so unconscious, so deeply embedded in their identity that they don't even realize it's happening. And this something is what I call the quantum saboteur, a part of your consciousness that's working against your manifestation attempts, even when you think you're doing everything right. There's a part of you that doesn't want you to change, not the conscious part that's watching this video or seeks transformation. I'm talking about a deeper part, a subconscious part, that has become so identified with your current struggles that it sees your growth as a threat to its existence. This is what I call the quantum saboteur, and it's been operating behind the scenes of your life, systematically undermining your manifestation attempts in ways so subtle you've probably never noticed them. Here's how it works. You get excited about a new opportunity, but then suddenly find reasons why it won't work. You start feeling genuinely hopeful about your future, but then old fears surface to pull you back down. You begin attracting what you've been asking for, but then self-sabotage kicks in just before breakthrough. This isn't weakness or lack of willpower. This is your familiar self fighting for survival. Because your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between what's good for you and what's familiar to you. It only knows that change feels dangerous, and its job is to keep you safe by keeping you the same. Your familiar self is like a quantum identity, a consistent pattern of thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that has become so automatic it feels like who you are. But here's what most people don't realize: this identity isn't fixed. It's just a pattern you've repeated so many times it feels natural. And this pattern is constantly broadcasting a signal into the quantum field, telling it what to manifest in your experience. If your familiar self is someone who struggles with money, who has difficulty in relationships, who doubts their worthiness, then that's the reality the quantum field will continue to reflect back to you. But here's where it gets really interesting. Your familiar self isn't just maintaining your current reality. It's actively preventing you from accessing the quantum possibilities that exist beyond it. It's like a radio that's locked onto one frequency, unable to receive any other signals. Dr. Joe Dispenza describes this as being addicted to being yourself. And just like any addiction, breaking free requires going through the discomfort of withdrawal. The withdrawal from being the person you've always been. This is why transformation feels so uncomfortable, why growth often feels like death, why becoming who you're meant to be requires letting go of who you've been. Your familiar self experiences any deviation from its established patterns as a threat to its existence. But here's the profound truth that leads us to something revolutionary. Your familiar self isn't actually you. It's just a collection of learned responses, inherited beliefs, and emotional patterns that you took on to survive your past experiences. Underneath this familiar self is your authentic self, the consciousness that's been observing all these experiences without being defined by them. And this authentic self has access to quantum possibilities that your familiar self can't even perceive. It can observe realities that your familiar identity can't imagine. It can collapse experiences that your old patterns would automatically reject. But accessing this authentic self, learning to observe from this deeper place, requires something that most people are unwilling to do. It requires becoming comfortable with feeling unfamiliar to yourself. It requires being willing to think thoughts that feel strange, feel emotions that seem foreign, act in ways that don't match your historical patterns. This brings us to something about time that will revolutionize how you approach manifestation. Something about the relationship between your past, your present, and your future that most people have completely backwards. What I'm about to tell you will challenge everything you think you know about personal transformation. Most people believe that change happens in linear time, that you work on yourself gradually, slowly building new habits and releasing old patterns until eventually you become someone different. But quantum physics reveals something extraordinary. All possibilities exist simultaneously in the quantum field. The version of you that's struggling right now exists, but so does the version of you that's already abundant, already in love, already living your purpose. They're all equally real at the quantum level. The question isn't whether these possibilities exist. They do. The question is, which one are you choosing to collapse into your experience through the focus of your consciousness? Most people are unconsciously collapsing possibilities from their past. They wake up and slip into familiar thoughts, familiar emotions, familiar behaviors. They're using their consciousness to recreate who they've always been, which naturally recreates what they've always experienced. But here's what few people understand. You can just as easily collapse possibilities from your future. You can wake up and consciously choose to think, feel, and act like the person you're becoming rather than the person you've been. This isn't positive thinking or visualization. This is quantum identity shifting. It's about literally becoming a different person at the vibrational level by choosing to observe reality from your future self rather than your past self. When you do this consistently, when you choose to be your future self more often than your familiar self, something remarkable happens in the quantum field. It begins organizing circumstances, opportunities, and experiences that match your new vibrational signature. But here's where most people get confused. They think they need to see the change first, then they'll believe it's possible. They want external proof before they'll commit to internal transformation. But the quantum field works in reverse. You have to become it first, then you'll see it. This is what I call the quantum leap paradox. You have to be willing to feel unfamiliar to yourself before your external reality can become familiar to you. You have to risk the discomfort of the unknown to access the comfort of your desired known. And this brings us to the third quantum secret, the one that ties everything together and gives you the practical key to conscious creation. Because there's a specific state of being that makes this quantum leap not just possible but inevitable. A state where your thoughts and emotions align so perfectly that they create what Dr. Joe Dispenza calls coherence, a vibrational harmony that the quantum field can't help but respond to. But achieving this coherence requires understanding something about emotion that most people get backwards. Something that reveals why feeling grateful before you have reasons to be grateful isn't just helpful, it's essential. Here's the final secret, the one that changes everything. The quantum field doesn't respond to your desires, your intentions, or even your beliefs. It responds to your coherence, the alignment between what you think and what you feel, between who you say you're becoming and who you're actually being moment by moment. Coherence is what happens when your mind and heart are in harmony, when your thoughts and emotions are working together instead of against each other. It's the difference between playing a symphony where every instrument is synchronized versus a cacophony where each musician is playing a different song. Most people live in a state of internal contradiction. They want abundance but fear money. They desire love but don't feel worthy of it. They seek change but resist leaving their comfort zones. This internal conflict creates vibrational static that confuses the quantum field and results in mixed, inconsistent, or delayed manifestations. But when you achieve coherence, when your thoughts and emotions align into a single powerful frequency, you become like a quantum laser beam. All of your energy is focused in one direction, creating a signal so clear and strong that the quantum field has no choice but to respond. Dr. Joe Dispenza has measured this state scientifically. When people reach coherence, their brain waves synchronize, their heart rhythm becomes ordered, and their entire nervous system enters a state of harmony. In this state, they're no longer trying to manifest. They are manifestation. They're not attempting to attract what they want. They are the frequency that naturally draws it. But here's what's crucial to understand. Coherence can't be faked or forced. It emerges naturally when you release internal resistance and align with what wants to emerge through you. It's like tuning a guitar. Each string needs to be adjusted until they all work together to create beautiful music. The path to coherence begins with elevated emotions, feelings like gratitude, joy, love, and inspiration that naturally align your thoughts with positive possibilities. But here's what most people don't understand. You don't feel grateful because good things happen to you. You feel grateful first, and then good things happen as a response to your gratitude. This is the quantum secret that changes everything, The emotion comes first, then the experience that matches it. You don't wait to feel abundant until you have money. You feel abundant first, and money comes as a reflection of your abundance consciousness. When you consistently generate elevated emotions, when you feel the way you want to feel before you have external reasons to feel that way, you're essentially placing an order with the quantum field. You're saying, this is who I am, this is how I feel, this is the reality I'm choosing to collapse into existence. And the field, like a cosmic mirror, begins reflecting back experiences that match your vibrational order. But maintaining coherence requires vigilance. It means catching yourself when you slip back into familiar patterns of thought and emotion. It means choosing your future self over your familiar self again and again until the future self becomes more familiar than the old one. It means being willing to feel grateful when your bank account says you should feel worried. Being willing to feel loved when your relationship status says you should feel lonely. Being willing to feel successful when your current circumstances say you should feel like a failure. This isn't denial or positive thinking, it's quantum mechanics. You're choosing which version of reality to collapse into existence through the coherence of your consciousness. When you master this, when you can sustain elevated emotions regardless of external circumstances, you become what spiritual traditions call enlightened and what quantum physics calls coherent. You're no longer at the mercy of your environment because you've learned to create your environment through the power of your consciousness. But there's one final piece to this puzzle, something that ensures your coherence doesn't collapse back into familiar patterns, something that anchors your new identity so deeply that returning to your old self becomes impossible, and that something is practice. Daily, consistent, unwavering practice of being the person whose life you want to live. Not when you feel like it, not when it's convenient, not when you're inspired, but especially when you don't feel like it, when it's inconvenient, when you feel tired or doubtful or scared. Because every time you choose coherence over chaos, elevation over familiarity, your future self over your past self, you're literally rewiring your brain, restructuring your identity, and shifting into a different quantum reality. And eventually, sooner than you might expect, the person you've been practicing being becomes the person you simply are. The feelings you've been practicing feeling become your natural emotional state. The reality you've been collapsing through your consciousness becomes your lived experience. This is the ultimate quantum truth. You are not fixed. You are not limited by your past. You are not bound by circumstances. You are a conscious being with the power to choose which version of reality you collapse into existence through the quality of your observation, the elevation of your consciousness, and the coherence of your being. Everything I've shared with you today leads to this moment, this choice, this quantum decision that will determine not just what you experience tomorrow, but who you become in the process of experiencing it. You now understand the three quantum secrets: that consciousness creates reality through observation, that you've been unconsciously addicted to the chemistry of familiar limitations, and that coherence, the alignment of thought and emotion, is what collapses your desired reality from possibility into experience. But understanding is not enough. Knowledge without application is just philosophy. The question now is, what will you do with what you know? You have two paths before you. The first is to return to familiar patterns, to let this information become just another interesting idea you heard once, but never applied. To let your quantum saboteur convince you that change is too difficult, too risky, too uncomfortable to pursue. The second path is to begin practicing quantum coherence immediately. To start choosing your future self over your familiar self. To begin generating elevated emotions, not because you have external reasons to feel them, but because you understand that feeling them is how you create external reasons to feel them. This second path requires courage, not the courage to fight external battles, but the courage to be unfamiliar to yourself. The courage to think thoughts that feel strange, to feel emotions that seem foreign, to act in ways that don't match your historical patterns. It requires the courage to be grateful when your circumstances suggest ingratitude, to feel abundant when your bank account suggests scarcity, to embody love when your relationship status suggests loneliness, to maintain faith when your evidence suggests doubt. But here's what I want you to understand. This courage isn't about forcing yourself to feel positive emotions. It's about recognizing that you have a choice in every moment. A choice about which thoughts to think, which emotions to feel, which version of yourself to be. The quantum field is always responding to your choice. Right now, as you integrate these understandings, it's organizing new possibilities around you. People, circumstances, opportunities, and experiences that match your elevated consciousness are already moving toward you through the invisible web of quantum connection. Your job is not to figure out how these manifestations will arrive or to force them into existence through effort and struggle. Your job is to maintain the vibrational coherence that allows them to unfold naturally through the intelligent organization of the quantum field. This means making a commitment to yourself, a quantum commitment to being the person whose life you want to live, regardless of external circumstances, to practicing elevated emotions daily, to choosing thoughts that align with your desired reality, to maintaining coherence even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. Because every time you make this choice, every time you select your future self over your familiar self, you're literally shifting into a different quantum timeline. You're accessing possibilities that didn't exist for the old version of you. You're becoming someone who naturally attracts what the old you could only dream about. The double-slit experiment proves that reality is not fixed until observed. Your reality is not fixed until you observe it into being through the power of your consciousness. What will you choose to observe? What will you choose to collapse into existence? What version of yourself will you choose to become? These aren't just philosophical questions. They're practical decisions that you make moment by moment, thought by thought, emotion by emotion, choice by choice. The quantum field is listening. The universe is responding. Your new reality is already emerging from the invisible realm of infinite possibility into the visible realm of manifest experience, all because you've chosen to remember who you really are and what you're truly capable of. But remember, this is not a one-time decision. It's a daily practice, a moment-by-moment choice, a continuous commitment to being the conscious creator of your own experience. Every morning you'll wake up with the same choice. Will you be the person you've always been, or will you be the person you're becoming? Will you collapse possibilities from your past, or will you collapse them from your future? The quantum field doesn't judge your choice. It simply responds to whatever you consistently choose. But I want you to choose consciously. I want you to choose powerfully. I want you to choose the version of yourself that has access to the life you've always dreamed of living. Because that version of you isn't a fantasy or a distant possibility. It's a quantum reality waiting to be collapsed into your experience through your willingness to be it, feel it, and embody it consistently. This is your quantum awakening. This is your moment of conscious creation. This is your invitation to step into the reality that's been waiting for you all along. The question is, are you ready to accept it? Your future self is calling. The quantum field is listening. Your new reality is emerging. And it all begins with your next thought, your next emotion, your next choice, to be consciously coherent in a world of unconscious chaos. This is who you've always been. This is who you are right now. This is who you're becoming with every conscious choice you make. Welcome to your quantum life. Welcome to conscious creation. Welcome to the reality where anything is possible, because you understand the consciousness that makes it so. The double-slit experiment was just the beginning. Your life is the ongoing experiment, and you are both the scientist and the consciousness observing the miraculous results. What will you create next?